Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So 54-year-old Florida resident Audrey Southard-Rumsey, according to her sentencing memo, was very well known by local authorities, quote, because she was a frequent aggressive presence, a vocal agitator at political rallies held in connection with the Black Lives Matter movement and the 2020 presidential election. Following Trump's loss in 2020, Southard-Rumsey posted increasingly violent tirades on Facebook. She wrote things like, quote, go to their work and home, pull them out by their teeth, and hang them for treason. Southard-Rumsey also worked along with a friend. She tried to draft an amendment to the Constitution. Wait till you guys hear this one. This amendment would make Trump the president until 2024, remove all Democratic officials from government, and create a, quote, People's Department of Government Control and Intervention. And this constitutional amendment would grant the president, meaning Trump, quote, all and any force needed to carry out and enforce this declaration. Yeah, that's not fascist at all. And any law enforcement official who stood in their way could be arrested. But here's my favorite part. It states, quote, those who have taken money from other countries to be enemies of the people are required to resign by 8 p.m. 1/6/21 or be forcibly removed. Who wants to tell her? Who wants to tell her about Trump? Clueless. These people are clueless. And after Southard-Rumsey attended a pro-Trump rally in November, she boasted on Facebook that she, quote, kicked the crap out of Antifa chick, tore down some BLM signs, and helped carry the huge Trump flag around. In December of 2020, Southard-Rumsey posted things like, quote, locked and loaded, Jan 6th, go 1776 on these MFs. He's going to end it, and the congressional traitors will hang. Piglosi, we're going to go 1776 on your ass. So, typical tourist stuff. Her violence continued, or her violent posts, I should say, continued in the lead up to the Capitol attack. She wrote things like, quote, I'm sure my judgment of Piglosi is going to be okay with God. And, quote, traitors need in-home/office visit. Treason needs to be addressed 1776 style. And on January 6th, she didn't even attend Trump's speech. Southard-Rumsey went straight to the Capitol and she live streamed to Facebook. In one video, she said, quote, standing in front of the Capitol building, ready to take it. As soon as we get enough people up here, storm the Capitol building. It's going to be fun. In another video, she showed a line of officers and she said, quote, standing here at the Capitol ready to take the line because Pence is a traitor. So a while later, she was seen in a tug of war with another person in the mob who was trying to return a bike rack barricade to the police line. She was pulling on it so hard that she fell to the ground, and then she accused the other person of being Antifa. So sometime after that, Southard-Rumsey was seen grabbing onto and trying multiple times to pull a riot shield away from an officer. That officer later told investigators that he vividly remembered her, and he said that she was one of the primary agitators in the mob, and he said that she was one of the, quote, craziest. And after violently breaking through that police line, Southard-Rumsey and the mob entered the building. She and others headed straight towards the House chamber, and then she was once again at the front of this mob. She was yelling at the officers, berating them, the ones who were blocking their path. And as the mob filled in behind her, she was encouraging them to attack the police. And the officers involved in this confrontation described her as one of the loudest and a, quote, 10 plus out of a scale of 1 to 10. So she was up in their faces. She was screaming things like, "Tell Pelosi we're coming for that B word." Also, "Tell Pelosi we're coming for her effing traitorous C word." But she actually used the words. Southard-Rumsey also pointed and cursed at the officers. She was calling them names, things like what Trump likes to grab on women without permission. She also taunted them. She was threatening the officers. She said things like, quote, "Last breath, last bullet, what's it gonna be?" And she kept turning and yelling to the crowd, trying to rile them up. At some point, she picked up a flag and she raised it in the air. And then a few minutes later, she turned the flagpole sideways and she pressed it into a sergeant's chest. So she got in his face and she was yelling at him, "You're a traitor to our country." And then when he tried to de-escalate the whole situation, he was trying to talk to the mob behind her. She was yelling, "Bullshit, they're going to feel us." So the sergeant told the investigators that this situation was like a, quote, "bomb waiting to explode." Eventually, Southard-Rumsey and all of these other people behind her forced their way past these officers. There were only like a dozen officers, and the mob just kept getting bigger and bigger. So she used that same flagpole, she had it turned sideways still, to push this sergeant backward. She pushed him into a set of doors. Those doors flung open, and then he was pushed backwards into a marble statue. So that statue ended up cutting his head open. And officers all around him were pinned up against the walls. They were pinned against the doors by this mob. One officer said he recalled seeing her and she was screaming. She was using the flagpole to try to smash a door. He also said that at one point she was up in his face. She was screaming. He had to grab her and push her off of him. I mean, she's just completely out of control. So ultimately, the mob made their way all the way to the chamber doors, the House chamber doors. Congress members were still inside at the moment. They were all huddled down on the floor. So Southard-Rumsey was, again, at the front of this mob. She was yelling, quote, "Pelosi, we're coming for you, socialist C word." Again, she used the full word. And she said, "We know where you live." Finally, another group of officers arrived. They physically removed everyone from the area, but Southard-Rumsey still didn't leave the building. She went into the rotunda. She was once again at the front of a mob. They were physically pushing officers, and these officers were standing guard at the top of a staircase. So they said, like, the staircase was back behind them. They said they feared that this mob was going to knock them down the stairs backward. And one of these officers recalled Southard-Rumsey pushing against him and yelling. And he said that she just refused to comply with his orders. So reinforcements eventually arrived, and then they started to push Southard-Rumsey and the others back. So she grabs on to one of the officer's batons and she refused to let it go. So he said he had to twist it to get it out of her hands. And then she pointed at him and she yelled at him, quote, "You're an asshole. You're going to get your ass kicked." Then she tried to incite the mob again. And then when another officer tried to push her back, she grabbed his baton. So that's when a third officer, a female officer, pushed her. And then Southard-Rumsey grabbed that officer, the female officer, by the shoulder. And then she tried, they said, to either hit her or elbow her in the face. They couldn't tell from the camera angle. But the female officer, again, pushed her away. And then Southard-Rumsey tries to charge at that female officer, but then other people got in the way, so she couldn't get to her. So she walked around a different way. She walked over to one of those metal stanchions, the ones that were holding up the rope that the Republicans say, "Oh, it was a tourist, tourist visit. Look at how they're staying in between the rope." So at that point, the rope had been taken down. So she tries to pick up this stanchion. And as she was picking it up with two hands, she was saying something to the female officer, letting her know she intended to hit her with it. Luckily, another officer intervened and he stopped her. So finally, after nearly an hour inside the building, Southard-Rumsey exited, but she remained on the Capitol grounds for a while and she kept recording more videos. In the days that followed, she was claiming that she and others were unarmed. She blamed Antifa for the damage to the Capitol. She also referred to the attack as, quote, glorious and fun. And she boasted about all of the media attention that she was receiving. So Southard-Rumsey was arrested on June 2nd of 2021, and in a second superseding indictment, she was charged with 3 counts of civil disorder, 5 counts of assaulting or resisting officers, obstructing an official proceeding, entering a restricted building or grounds, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, 2 counts of physical violence, and parading or demonstrating in a Capitol. Southard-Rumsey refused a plea deal, and she finally agreed to a stipulated bench trial. So in January of 2023, she was found guilty of 3 counts of civil disorder, 3 counts of assaulting or resisting officers, and obstructing an official proceeding. So she was looking at up to 20 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. The government, however, requested a sentence of 6 years in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. And at her sentencing hearing, she had a meltdown. She remained completely defiant. She spoke for 15 minutes, they say. She was berating the prosecutors and the media. And she told the judge, quote, "I want to tell you exactly what you want to hear, but I won't. I won't lie. There were vicious lies about me." And ever the perpetual victim, she added, quote, "My whole dream of my life has been taken because people have different politics than me. Yeah, that's why." And then, quote, "When you decide to throw me in prison for doing my duty, think of what I now have to give up." Yeah. So she ended her diatribe with what I would expect to hear from a spoiled 3-year-old child. Southard-Rumsey said, "It's not fair." It's not fair. So, yeah. U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta presided over Southard-Rumsey's case, and he told her, quote, "You terrorized members of Congress, including those who believe the things you do." And then he admonished her and the others for, quote, "cloaking themselves in patriotism." And he told her that on January 6th, she was a, quote, "one-person wrecking crew." So in the end, Judge Mehta did something very rare. He imposed a terrorism enhancement on her case, and he sentenced Southard-Rumsey to 6 years in prison and 3 years of probation. There was no mention of a restitution fee or a fine, so I don't know what went on with that. But hopefully she will have a come to Jesus moment in the pokey. I mean, that is where everyone finds him, right? I found Jesus in prison. So anyway, I don't know why nobody knows where he is. Everybody's like, where is he? When is he coming back? He's here. He's in prison. Everybody says that. Anyway, all right, guys, I will let you know when I hear more because I just have a feeling we're going to hear more about this woman. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please become a donor if you can, or at least leave a one-time tip or super thanks, depending on what platform you're on. All links are down below in the description box if you want to become a monthly donor and help out the show long term. Really, really appreciate it. Love you all. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.